Wait a minute. Hold up. Before we even start, I know what y'all probably thinking. Wait a minute. Chris and Chris Mason are doing a show on a Sunday afternoon. What's going on? Something important happened. Something bad happened. Something this and that. Nothing bad happened, nothing crazy, nothing too crazy. But we thought that we would get on here and talk, discuss, and just kind of react to some of the camp notes or whatnot that's been going on as fall camp is winding down. Hopefully, we can get Jason in here. If not, then that's fine. We'll get him obviously this Thursday, as you know. Thursday around by 8 o'clock CST. That's whenever we do our show. But got Chris Mason here, Mr. Students 360 himself. So go ahead, give us a like on the Horns Down podcast, and as well as Students 360 as well, because today we have some camp notes. Going to talk a little bit of recruiting. We got a I wouldn't necessarily say a surprise commit if you've been kind of paying attention to what's going on, but definitely got to commit. So, and there's some other info that's going on as well that's out there. So with that being said, Chris Mason, man, you were kind of the one who spearheaded this, so I'll kind of give you the floor. Kind of where do we open up with this?
Well, we're going to open up with so I was fortunate enough to have a source who was at practice yesterday, who was able to spend, was basically able to be there for the entire practice. It was a practice session that Brent opened up to alumni, football players, alumni, and other folks. So, like I said, I was able to talk to somebody who was able to be at practice, and I was able to message them back and forth, and they were able to give me some notes. It's not anything I think earth-shattering, but I just wanted to share it with our loyal listeners and give you that information. Not wait until Thursday to give you a tease on this because they're about to break out of camp, so things are about to be a little different. And I think things are probably going to be a little bit more locked down in terms of the information coming out of camp. So it was sort of a mini scrimmage, Chris, and then they basically held a practice. It wasn't, I think, probably as hardcore as the Wednesday practice, the Wednesday scrimmage that the offense won, or the one on the previous Saturday that the defense kind of dominated. So, but I'll just kind of hit you with the notes right off. In the scrimmage stuff that did take place, and I sort of even before they got going, the first good piece of news is that the two kickers were absolutely nails. They were smashing the ball from 50 and 55 yards. It wasn't limping over the goalposts. It was basically landing in the stands, and they were both kickers looked fantastic. So they were, just smashing the ball, and they were both, really good accuracy from long distance, routinely hitting 50 and 55 yarders. So I think we all think that the kicking game is going to be a key part of a couple of potential wins, or at least it's going to be part of what's going on. And from that, I was very encouraged to hear that Sandell, and I believe it was the other guy that they brought in, Welch, that were just slamming it. Hey, Chris, I just need to do something for one sec.
Got you. No, and I think for me with that, well, Chris Mason will retire here soon, but I think for me, it's one of those things where I'm really interested in our in our kicking game, our special teams as well. I think this is a year where we have guys. Well, hopefully we don't have like an LSU experience where we give up a kick return for a touchdown, punt return, different things like that. Let people get active in their special teams. But I think this is a year where we don't necessarily have to worry about it like we did in the past years. Zach Smith, I thought he was serviceable or whatnot, but it was very dicey, right? Hopefully now with Sandell, he kind of gives us that boost to be able to, put points on the board, but also be able to regroup and have time and have the confidence knowing that, hey, either we tied the game or we're ahead or we're closing in, right? So it's a guy that actually, kick, do different things like that. But it seems like they're happy with the kickers that they have there. And then I think Ulrich, I think that's how you say his last name, the punter, I think they're happy with him as well. So, I mean, special teams, I think about 2 years ago, 23, in that season right there, as good as that season was, it was plagued by kind of bad special teams, right?
Couple of returns, couple of missed punts, couple of missed field goals would have made the difference on the road.
To me, in that Texas game, that's what kind of kept the door wide open for them, simply because you had all the momentum, and uh, you had Sark was trying to figure out what on his script could he run in that first half, and it just was not working. And so special teams kind of allowed them to stay in, especially with that punt block, or that block punt that they had that turned into a touchdown. So it's things like that you just don't take for granted. Right now, we need everything, all facets of the game to come through. I think that's again what I'm probably the most excited about Chris Mason this year, is that I think that we can finally get back to complementary football.
So before they started hitting the mini scrimmage, my source said that the thing that he struck him the most was how good the offensive line looked, how good a shape they're in. He said the whole team on the hoof looks great. That we've got some old bus guys, right? They're definitely old bus guys on this team. But he kind of mentioned how the offensive line looked in great shape. They didn't look like a bunch of fat guys. They looked like basically leaned up, bulked up tight ends. That they basically, they just looked fantastic. And the starting group was Fasusi, Ozetta, Everett, Nwewu, and Howland. So Sexton was working out, didn't participate in some of the contact stuff, the limited contact stuff that they did when they were doing sort of the mini scrimmage, but he was all dressed out, going through drills. I think he's very close to coming back. That means you've got your third tackle. That means you got 3 tackles there. And the O-line and the practice stuff, or the scrimmage stuff that he was able to observe, was able to move the D-line around. They were pushing guys around. They're moving guys. He was particularly surprised how good Nwewu looked physically. The guy's leaned up and has leaned up / bulked up. It's lost weight, added good weight back, and he looked very good. He was, he wasn't a big. My source, is one of those guys like our discussion we had with Brady, where we were talking about, I think that was August 1st. Camp had just started. We were talking about how we wanted Nwewu out. We wanted Nwewu to see Nwewu replaced. My guy would have been probably in that camp August 1st with Brady and you guys. So he was very impressed with him. Sexton, like I said, he said I think he'll be back almost immediately. Mateer looked great. And the biggest thing he mentioned was that Mateer is just throwing lasers, and he's hitting receivers in stride. He's leading wide receivers. They need to be ready that the ball, they need to be ready for the ball coming to them quickly when, he's anticipating gaps. He's throwing passes. He's getting the ball to the receivers so that they can actually do something when they get it. They don't have, there was a big play where he hit Burks in stride, and basically Burks turned around, ball hit him, and he didn't, there's no waiting for the football. The Arnold clip we showed on Thursday where he's just sitting there waiting. Well, this isn't John Mateer. He is anticipating and throwing guys open, throwing guys in stride, letting guys get the ball in space with the chance to actually do something with it.
And if you go back and look at the Washington State film, which I honestly say, hey, don't just go to his highlight tape. Go and actually, watch some of these games. If you have time, try to go find like the Texas Tech game, the Washington game, especially those. Even hell, go look at the Boise State game where they lost. Go look at like the San Jose State or games like that where they put up a lot of points, and you'll get to see kind of how that offense goes, and you'll see kind of what we've been talking about all along with him. He's making NFL like plays out there, not just throws but plays, the reads, different things like that, the timing that you need to be able to have at that next level. So no, John Mateer has all the intangibles. So just kind of going back, I don't want to stop your momentum with your notes, but a couple of things you said there, I think that we need to kind of break down. So obviously we kind of talked about it this past Thursday with our thought, kind of our mini reaction to what Gabe had said post post their pod that they posted on last Wednesday. So I guess the focus now, let's shift the focus to Nwewu. Where are you at with Nwewu? Anybody here that's in the chat right now, if you guys have any thoughts about it, like where are you guys at with him? Do you see him holding that spot? Obviously, everything they're talking it up, it's good, it sounds good, and all the rest of that stuff. I think I'm still a little bit on the fence simply because of last year. Maybe I just need to let that go. But I mean, I'm just asking, like, where are you optimistic about Nwewu, or like where are you at with that?
Well, all the reports have indicated that he's worked very hard in the offseason to reshape his body, lose bad weight. He's trimmed up, but everyone says he looks fantastic. My source says he has a hard time distinguishing Foji from Wewu, that the guys are they're both these sort of, they're both 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 325, and they're huge. They're just big guys. I think there's a greater chance we're going to see the Wewu that Gabe thought he was seeing last spring when he was talking about him being all SEC than we do see the guy we saw last fall, who I don't think could keep Foje or EPL out of the starting lineup. That's where I read right now. The leadership stuff has been mentioned by everybody, which is a big part of this. This is his shot. This is his chance. I think, he's definitely, it's the entire offense is in prove it mode, right? I mean, basically, some of the cornerback plays sort of in prove it mode, sort of prove it mode. But the entire offense is like, you got to show me, right? So, but everything we've heard consistently, there's competition going on, and I'm buying what I'm hearing based upon my source, who is not like a homer on this. And I'll get to that in a little bit with some other comments from him. My source was, before he called me right before the scrimmage, he said, I just don't think the O-line's going to, all this swapping around and the guy's banged up. He goes, I'm just not sure the O-line's going to do it. And I'll get to his reactions later, but he came out with a very different opinion after this practice and scrimmage, what he was able to see. Again, it wasn't the hard-hitting thing on Wednesday, and George Stoyer and some other folks have reported that, but they were still going at each other for a mini scrimmage. And, the O-line was able to move the D-line. And the next comment from him, which, I think, very interesting for us, is that he said that Torrey Blaylock looked great, had a couple of wow moments in the mini scrimmage. You can just see the home run threat that he represents. My guy thought he looked faster and quicker than Tatum last year, and he was bigger than he anticipated. He's like, wow, Blaylock's like nearly 6 foot 200. Because I think we all were thinking, maybe he was like 5'11", 180. That that's sort of what he played at high school, and now he's 6 foot 200. His dad putting him through the weight room. His dad Derek getting him. The OU off-season conditioning obviously did a good job, but obviously his dad, was like, look, you got to put, kids, you got to get your weight up to play. But he thought Blaylock looked fantastic out there. There were moments when they started shuffling people in and out, so it made it hard to keep an eye on everybody. But when some of the second team D-line was in there, Foji was kind of smacking them around. And, he was kind of pushing two guys around and moving folks. So Foji, again, getting, he's part of that old bus team, and he just looks huge. He could be dominant inside. After talking to him a bit, he said that OU is working the middle more than he had seen them in the last couple of seasons. And obviously nothing worked last year, middle, left, or right. But I think with DG, we all kind of believe that the middle was underutilized. Or at least, I think that I've heard that from a number of people, that we didn't use the middle as effectively as we should have, because he had a hard time seeing it, working it, whatever. And he said that both Carrion and Carter had very good days, and Carrion in particular was working the middle very effectively.
Yeah, it was. It sounds like it was a day that some of our younger guys got a real chance out there as well. And no, I think the middle is definitely in that offense again. If you go back, especially go turn on the Washington tape, one of the things that I've seen Summer Sooner Nation, say kind of, I guess one of their concerns or mine maybe just like minor concerns. Let's put it like that about John Mateer is that sometimes he throws cross body, some of the different motions, how he works his arm motions as far as when he's throwing the ball. I don't have any issue with it. I seen a guy who, hey, the pocket is breaking down. Washington is getting pressure. They're sitting back there in zone and they're waiting on the pass, but they're sitting there getting pressure with 3 and 4 the entire game. And so he's making things happen. I'm saying, man, the kid is, yeah, his body is facing the sideline, but he's throwing across body, but he's hitting guys in stride and hitting guys that are sitting right there in those holes in the zone. So I mean, thing is that, hey, you say that and you say, who does that sound like? I don't even want to say his name, but you already know who that sounds just like.
Right.
So with that being said, it's not necessarily a big or major concern of mine with that. So no, to your point though, yeah, they work all facets of the offense. They all space that is out there in the field in front of them. They use that sideline to sideline, down the sideline, and then also over the middle as well. Arbuckle's offense, in my mind, just kind of what I see. It's like, I mean, hell, you can say that about every offense. Every offense is layered, right? You have your big play, your intermediary play, and you have your check down. But truly, in his offense, you have a couple of those, and especially when he's running those 4 wide sets. When you get to see him run some of those 4 receiver sets that you guys will see those formations or whatnot, you'll definitely see. Yeah, you have a big play guy out there. You have another guy who can pick up a lot of yards, but you have kind of that check down as well, or that extra blocker with your running back, but you also have kind of that check down, kind of that wide receiver that is going to be the possession guy, right? So that's the cool thing about his offense, is that it makes sense. It's not necessarily, to me, I think that's kind of, from what I've seen at least, that's where it kind of differs from like a Lincoln, in the sense that Lincoln is still going to run 15-yard curl routes, 15-yard outs, different things like that on third down that still take time to develop. Whereas Arbuckle is mainly like, hey, I just need to get to the next set of plays, opposed to trying to win everything back on this one play. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's going to be an interesting part about it.
Yeah, like I said, I just felt like maybe under Levy, and maybe I'm wrong on this, and folks can disagree with me, but I just felt like the middle was always sort of underutilized with Dylan.
Here's the thing though, with yes, and then also no, simply, and I would say this, Chris Mason. Slants. They whenever we were in a bind, those slants with tight ends, or especially Drake Stoops. That they use the middle a lot for that stuff, but that's the veer and shoot. It's not necessarily predicated on that. When you do see passes over the middle, you do see those in other systems, other places or whatnot. But I don't necessarily know if we were able to actually run some of those plays, because Levy, for a while there, Levy lived in that tight formation. He loved those tight formations. He wanted to run those tight and those bunch formations, and we just did not have the offensive line, the personnel to run those type of formations. Honestly, we had to go back to kind of the base veer and shoot and kind of go off of that, and that's what made us the most successful under him. So, yeah.
So Hawkins looks significantly improved. Much better throwing the ball, much better with his reads, throwing darts everywhere. Huge improvement is how my source put it. That the last 8 months of QB development with Arbuckle and Coach Coos, you can see how much Hawkins is in Mateer's hip pocket. Like, okay, I know this guy's starting over me. Because the interactions between them, when Hawkins goes in for Mateer, it's just, he throws a pass. He's talking to Mateer. Mateer's talking to him. He's just so much more. They just said Hawkins is much more. They were not a Hawkins buyer prior to this, and they came out of the scrimmage and the practice saying, man, he looks 100 times better. I was really not a buyer with him last year. And again, who could buy anything we were seeing on offense last year, really? But they thought Hawkins looked so significantly improved. A little hopium for you guys, a little hype. Nagy was talking to Nagy was all around this practice scrimmage, right? There were lots of alums there, lots of people there. And Nagy was sort of talking to a group of people, and I think somebody asked him a question about Foji and Fasusi. And Nagy was basically saying he feels like they will be All-American / All-Pro types. So if you're wondering if the hype is being bought in internally, and you obviously hear Bill talking about these guys in terms that we've never really seen Bill talk about freshmen before. Well, our GM thinks they're All-American, All-Pro kind of types. They think their ceilings are ridiculously high. What else do I got here for you? Just overall, this is the final sort of dose of hopium for you. Overall, my source said this is the best looking team since 2017. Now, let me give you kind of a caveat there. He was basically saying that the D is equivalent to the Baker offense in 2017, like talent, depth, playmakers, leadership. The defense is just loaded and looks incredible. And what he meant there is that just like 2017, he thinks OU will go as far as the other side of the ball will take them, right?
Yeah.
If you remember the 2017 season, it was the offense that obviously led, but the defense made plays, right? They made plays. The fumble return in the Rose Bowl should have won that game, right?
Yeah.
They made plays against TCU in the Big 12 championship. They provided enough playmaking on defense to get to support the offense and get us through the season. So he kind of feels like, the offense, as good as the offense is that's where there's a ceiling with this defense and how good it looks. Mm-hmm. There's playmakers on every level. There's depth on every level. But it's the offense. Now, I will tell you, he went in very skeptical to this practice. He wasn't sure what he was going to see. And he came away and he was just very impressed with the quarterbacks and the offensive line. He's like, I didn't think, all the reports out of practice had me concerned about what I was going to see with the offensive line. And the offensive line looked good. They were battling what we know is a good defensive front four, front seven. They were battling. The receivers were battling, the DBs in the secondary. He came away. He's like, wow, this is, because he was talking to some other folks he trusts who've been to more practices than he has been to. And they're just like, it's the best looking team on the hoof since, 17. It's not the offense isn't like that. Mm-hmm. But the defense is now where the offense was in 2017.
It's the best team that BV has had to date here, and the whole thing is that I love BV, and I think BV is the coach to lead us to where we're trying to get to. That chase to 8, I am so tired of hearing that because I want that to come to fruition. But thing is that I just think that there's no excuse this year. There is no excuse for you to not at the very least win 9 games. I think that you have a chance to start the season 5-6-0. Depending on how you can swing it with that Texas game. Outside of that, I still believe that this is a very talented team. I'm interested to see. Did you have any notes about corner or anything like that? I'm trying to get a sense of what is kind of Illinois State. Who are we going to see? I think obviously you see Gentry. I think you see
Jacoby.
Jacoby. I think you see Devon Jordan, Guillory, and Newcomb. I think you see kind of those five, and then you kind of, maybe you show some things with Dolby. Maybe you don't play Dolby. Maybe you wait, for Michigan to bring Dolby and Giovanni Gibson back into the fold, or whatever, however you're going to do that. So I'm interested just to see were there any notes passed along about that.
No, I didn't get anything specific on cornerbacks. He was obviously, like I said, he went in and he said, I'm really going to be focused on the QBs and the O-line today, because that's where my real concerns are. That I'm going to try and watch the O-line and give you as much feedback as I can on that, because that's really the number. That's the fear. I have the fear that he said, my fear is that the O-lines is where we're going to crumble, and that's where we're not. That's going to lead to us not being competitive, and we're going to waste this defense. So he was more focused on the O-line, looking at the O-line from that perspective, and that's why I got a little more O-line notes and quarterback notes than anything else. He was looking at, and the quarterbacks, just sort of leapt off. I mean, how good Hawkins and Mateer looked, was kind of his focus. So I don't really have anything on that. I would say it's probably I think we'll see all 5 kids against Illinois State. I think it's probably very close. I think you want to keep Jacoby backing up Gentry, just with Gentry's history. He did mention one of the things when guys were getting swapped in and out. He was talking to someone else, another source, and he said that one of the things they're trying to do is make sure that they're getting guys out of practice and keeping them fresh. Not burning their legs. A lot of folks sat out the last 2 scrimmages as they're trying to refresh guys' legs as they get into game week prep. They're breaking out of camp. Game week prep starts next week. So they're trying to cycle guys in and out, and they're also trying to make sure, they don't have an overwhelming amount of data on this, but they're just a little concerned that some of the injuries that they've been seeing have been with guys later in practice who've been working all practice. So they're just trying to swap guys in, get the backups in at the end, and they're monitoring workload on guys, their starters, much, at a heavier level, and getting the back, and especially on the defensive side, they've got so much depth that they can put the backup guys in. That's
definitely good to hear, right?
Yeah, they're working. I've heard he had multiple people telling, sources he was talking to while he's there. They're trying everything to keep the guys' legs fresh and to try and limit injuries by not having guys, for lack of a better term, straining at the end of practice, where they could get some of these muscle injuries that seem to be plaguing us a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't have anything. Like I said, I don't have anything on the cornerback game other than, as Gentry, Jacoby. I think we see both Guillory, Newcomb, and Devon DD. I think is what that's what how BV refers to him, DD Jordan, or D Jordan. I think we'll see all 3, and I think overall the cornerback play, with all the feedback we've been getting, and this is more from Gabe and Teddy talking about the defense. I think that's the number one positive coming out of camp, is the depth and talent at cornerback, and that OU made the right move, not grabbing a portal guy and just betting on their young talent was going to improve. So that's the like I said, that's the majority of the notes I have. Again, my guy was pretty skeptical. He's like, I love the defense, but man, I'm not sure about the offense at all. And he was very positive about the offense. He's like, I love what I see from the wide receivers. Jamarco Carter was balling, as well. Burks had a big day. He was out there. He looked great. And like I said, he just thought, Carrion and Carter. He actually thought they were tight ends. I'm like, no, that's Carrion and Carter. He's like, oh, okay. Because they were really working the middle, really, fighting for, fighting with DBs for passes. He goes, it was competitive. He said it was short, but it was very competitive. So he was very high on the offense, and he has not been high on the offense. He hasn't had a chance to go to. This is probably the second practice he was able to go to in person, and it was just, he's like, man, the offense just looks so much better than I thought it was going to look, and the quarterback play is just it just looks it looked so much better than last year. He was, I think he was concerned about Arnold last year with the turnovers. Not that that's any great revelation. We heard that from multiple sources all over the place. But just to give you guys some context, he was concerned last year. He's much more positive this year. And some of the folks that he talks to and when he's around the staff and team, longtime people longtime people with longtime histories at OU, are very, very confident about this team, are very upbeat.
So let's ask you the question, okay? Because I know Jason voices his opinion and I voiced my opinion about it as well, but I don't think that we truly heard where do you stand on this. I know you're one of those ones who kind of wants to observe, kind of listen to notes, kind of hear this, kind of see this as well. So I mean, kind of where are you at as far as your optimism level with this team?
I think based upon seeing Brent on Friday, which we haven't really talked about because Brent, did you see Brent's interview on Friday, the video?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've ever seen him describe his defense and he seemed almost giddy about it. I'm going to use a bad poker analogy. Yeah, I've just flopped the nuts. I'm ready to go all in. He just seemed like he was like, I've got my dudes. I'm ready. Game day can't get here soon enough. I'm ready to ball. I've got the guys I need. I've got all my guys. We bet on the secondary kids. They came through. The linebackers, we were a little worried. We could have picked up a linebacker, but the linebacker kids had come through. And the D line is just, it's the other defensive end spot is a battle royal from that perspective. Bishop Kirk's asking spotlight stars of the scrimmage. It would be Carrion, Blaylock, Jermichael Carter, and Burks. Those are the guys that mentioned. And he said that Mateer and Hawkins were just look great. So they can't do that without the offensive line. Torrey Blaylock can't look good if the line's not doing something, right?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, no, I agree with you. I was just gonna add, so with this defense, just one question before guys, we're not here that long. We'll shift to recruiting here in a second, but just one last question. So the defense has improved every year that BV has been here, and I think that out of everything, if whatever you want to say about BV, whatever good, bad, high, low, whatever the case may be, whatever you want to talk about when it comes to BV, it's all warranted. But one thing I think we all can agree on, even the naysayers and even the haters, defense. It seems to me that he's fixed our defense. That hasn't been the issue. So I guess my question is that even though, yeah, these defenses have improved and this could be the best defense he's had here in Oklahoma, I hate to ask it in this way, but is this the closest defense that he's had since leaving Clemson, right? Like, is it up there to where it's kind of a machine where it can run itself, where he can actually trust these guys to go and make those plays, to fit where they need to fit, to take care of their assignment, do their jobs per se? Like, is this that type of defense, do you feel?
Yeah, I do, because I think, when you talked about when I posted this on my Patreon site, plug for my Patreon site, please subscribe, give us a try, free trial. I said there were a number of variables that could take this defense from very good to potentially elite.
Uh-huh.
One was finding a defensive end across from R. Mason Thomas. That appears to have been achieved. It's just a question of which of the four weapons is going to happen, right? Could they find a role for Kendall Daniels that utilized his vast athletic skill set? We're hearing they accomplished that too. Other variables were, does David Stone take the next step? We're hearing he has. And the other ones are, do you get a healthy Gentry Wright and Peyton Bowen who could start accessing that sort of five-star ability in the secondary? And is there a cornerback, and is there cornerback depth? And, from the defensive standpoint, you pretty much have just checked every damn box in August about what you needed to see to say this defense could take that next step up, even losing Stutz and Stutz and Bowman are off to good NFL starts, right?
Yeah.
They look ready to outplay their draft rankings, right?
Yeah.
That's the vibe we're getting. So those, as good as those two guys were, all of those other forces that I'm talking about, all those other projections, I think, kind of erase those losses. And one thing I didn't mention that appears to be abundantly clear is that Kobe McKenzie has had a fantastic game. Is playing Mike, the best he's ever played Mike. So I think, yes, this defense has the potential, if all of those pieces from camp project onto the field, that I think we're going to take that next level from very, very good. And I think that's the hardest leap, right? You know, we were bad. We went to, okay, we were good in 2023. And in 2024, we became very good at times. You know, and I think that next leap is like the hardest step, right? It's like climbing Everest. It's the Hillary step, that last big leap you got to make to be elite. And I think OU's right there. And if those pieces we've talked about hit, then yes, I think we're talking about an elite defense. And then the ceiling just becomes, what does the other side of the ball give us? What does Batir, this rebuilt offensive line, and this rebuilt skill core, what are they able to do? How are they able to support the advantage? Support the defense? Are they able to let the defense grab some leads and let the defense pin their ears back and attack offenses and put teams away, right? You know, from a rush 4, drop 7, harass quarterbacks and get interceptions. And this is what we remember Brent's best defenses being, right? Quarterbacks went to see Brent Venables and went to die, right? That's just what happened. So I think we're, you know, and the Brent Clemson defenses from 15 through 18 had that front 4 that just controlled things, where Brent could stop the run with 4 and he could rush the passer with 4. And what he did in between with those 7 guys consistently changed all over the place. So quarterbacks and offensive coordinators never knew really what to do, right? Their base stuff doesn't work. And then all of a sudden, you think there's 4 guys and there's 6 guys coming at you. And, you know, you can't run the ball consistently. So you're made one-dimensional. And then your quarterback starts seeing ghosts and can't see linebackers and safeties dropping. And that's when interceptions happen. So
it was one of those things where you go back and you watch that Auburn game, and especially down the stretch when it mattered, just to kind of seal the games. It wasn't just necessarily R. Mason Thomas. Hell, RSJ got a sack in that game.
Like, he blew right through and blew the guy up.
A lot of the stuff that you're describing is honestly what.
And that'll work, because that'll still work, because Jackson won't see that, and R. Mason will blow him up. He will probably fumble the ball.
So you got to see a lot. You got to see a lot of that stuff. In different games this past season, not just not necessarily the ones early, but you got to see them kind of pin their heads back and be able to just to go all out. Hell, the Bama game, obviously we know offensively that was run happy that night, but the thing was the defense stepped up and they played in a major way. I mean, they did from the very first play. Danny met Milroe. Danny came through that hole and met him right there. I said, "Oh, this is about to be a good day right here. It's about to be a really good day." So
I think that is the ceiling that we're looking at.
Yeah.
And the offense, obviously, we've had some players in and out. And I think the positive has been that the Howland and Fasusi have just been sort of force-fed reps.
Yeah.
And it's boosted Fasusi's development window, his path, and it's gotten Howland back on track after the shoulder injury. And they both look like, they're really talented guys when you think about it. I mean, Howland was recruited by Iowa and Michigan. They badly wanted him to play offensive tackle for those 2 programs. And those 2 programs, you can say they have many weaknesses in offensive football, but they know how the hell to create offensive lines and offensive tackle play. So, and Fasusi, was either the number 1 offensive tackle in the country last year or number 2 at worst. And he's done nothing but, proved that since he walked on campus. So you get Sexton and Simmons back, and now you've got a deeper offensive. So if you want the hopium ray of sunshine, it sucked that Simmons and Sexton was out, but you productively used that time to get Howland back in the mix and to get Fasusi, to speed up his development. So offensively, lots of wide receivers have been making plays. We've heard about Satenya. We've heard about Burks. Burks has been, he was banged up a little bit. He's been in practice for the most part. We're seeing Carrion make plays, Jermichael Carter make plays. We should get Lewis and Kearney back next week in terms of getting them back on the back in play. And it's Josiah Martin is probably maybe a year away, but there's a huge potential there. And again, Torrey Blaylock has had a fantastic camp, and he looks great. I was pumping him last December during our signing day stuff. If you guys remember that, I was saying I thought he was badly underranked. And positively, Chris with the K, the recruiting class, the 25 recruiting class, which was like around 13, 14 in the nation, because I felt some guys were badly underranked. Right now, looks like it's gonna blow out its rankings, right? The guys are gonna blow up. Can I answer Bishop Frank's question about Nigel Smith real quick?
Yeah.
So Bishop, he's one of the things is that with Grayson Halton hurt, he's still guarding a hammy. I'm not sure we'll see him for Illinois State. I'd hold him out for Michigan. And with Marcus Strong rehabbing his knee a little bit, both Trent Wilson and Nigel Smith have gotten increased reps. So they have been sort of the same way that Fasusi and Howland have been force-fed reps. The same thing's gone on with Nigel Smith and Trent Wilson, where Bates has just been able to focus a lot more time on them. And Nigel Smith's transition to inside is going very well. He's going to be 6'4", 305 next year. He'll play this year. He's earned that right. We'll see Nigel Smith playing 3-tech, but athletically, Nigel Smith is equivalent. I mean, he has David Stone type athleticism. It's just, can Todd Bates teach him to play interior defensive tackle? Well, we may have many questions about what's going on, but Todd Bates' defensive tackles get better year over year over year. And I think Nigel Smith is primed towards having a big year next year when he'll play this year. Well, he'll be the Grayson Halton replacement next year. Trent Wilson is just 6'3". He'll be 310, 315 by the time he plays next year. And you can play him at a blistering fast nose. But yeah, so
what about Giovanni? Let's end it right there with on this point of the conversation. But what about Giovanni? Do we see him first game? From things that I'm hearing is that if we needed him first game, definitely could potentially see him, but probably Michigan, maybe even after.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more encouraged about Giovanni than I am Eli Bowen. I think overall that Bowen might be Auburn or maybe Texas as they work him back and as the young cornerbacks play so well. From that, I think Gibson I could see being back for Michigan, depending upon the last 2 weeks. If you see him, he's getting very close. But my God, did you see that photo of him? I mean, the guy, I thought that was like a defensive end I was looking at. I mean, the kid is, the kid's is in unreal shape. So if they can get him, I mean, he's got to be 6'3", 215 at this point, having worked. I mean, he hasn't been missing any weight room days from from what you can see. But I think Gibson, maybe Michigan, might be Auburn. Eli Bowen's the one the one I'm still a little iffy on where we are with that. Everybody else, I think for the most part, we're going to get back. Holton, again, I think you just keep, make sure he's in game shape and you get some reps at it. You bring him back from Michigan, get him some reps and get him there. But, with our defensive tackle depth, Marcus Strong is now back, so you can play him as well. You can play Trent Wilson and you can play Nigel Smith too as well. So those guys are playing well enough, I think, that you can put them in the rotation, which it makes the defensive tackle room pre-Bates and post-Bates. It's just, you almost wish Bates could have coached a couple more of the, could have coached a couple of the guys who left early, and you kind of wish Bates had maybe had a year to work with those guys, some of those guys. But yeah, I think it's we're going to see those guys play, and it's one of the bright spots, I think, of camp. If you ask me to list 10 of them, the play of Nigel Smith and Trent Wilson is a huge positive, not necessarily for 25, but for 26, it's really going to pay off.
All right. Let's go ahead and switch gears real quick to close this show out. You guys are going to squeeze out an hour in us, but hey, we'll try to keep it right there. So let's do some recruiting very briefly before we have to go. Chris Mason has to go. Here in a little bit. So let's try to get this situated. So with that being said, we got us a commit, Chris Mason. We got Tank Carrington. We got James Tank Carrington. He decommitted recently last week from Florida State and decided to join the guys. So the whole thing is this right here. I think some people are a little bit skeptical about it because they say he's small. I know there's been some issues or different that people have with necessarily what his actual weight is. We've seen 240, we've seen 260 from him, we've seen this and that. When I look at him, I say, hey, this is another G baby, a guy who has that type of film. You see a lot of wild plays, and you see some plays where you're like, hey, okay. So, I mean, where are you at on this commitment?
All right, so let's get the facts straight first, all right? So he never was a 2027 player. He's always been 2026. He hasn't reclassified. I keep hearing that places. I don't know where it started, but that's the fact. So the 240 number was because he lost a bunch of weight due to an illness in the spring, and then he attended a camp combine where he weighed 240. So he was 240 at one point. He was already back to 260 by May, according to his social media. I bet he plays this fall somewhere in the 265 to 270 range. Parker Thune had an interview with him and said that, and Carrington told him he was 272. So he's 6'2" and a bit, and he's 270. I think that's what he's going to play his senior year at. All right, so let's just clear up that. From a ranking standpoint, he's dropped on 3 and Rivals. He went from about the top 100 to top 400. He's still a 4-star on ESPN and 247. I imagine he will keep that ranking, but he's going to need an incredible senior year to reverse his score over at the new On3 Rivals recruiting Death Star. But one thing is that we will get to see him at an All-Star game, All-American, high school All-American game. He was invited to the Navy game, the San Antonio game that was the Army game and is now the Navy game. So we'll get to see him in that practice. We'll get reports on how he looks against the best high school competition at that game. So we'll get some data. We'll get a data point on that. That's very good. So I need to go back and look at the Holton clips. I think he's got a shorter transition to be G-Baby than G-Baby did. I think he was 6'2", 250, but I think he was a little quicker, a little twitchier. But I think Carrington's got a longer wingspan, slightly bigger, denser frame, and I think he can easily play at 285, 290, and he'll make that transition quicker. May not be quite as twitchy as Holton, but I think he'll make that transition to 3 technique, 285, 290. I think he'll make it quicker than Holton did. His junior film is kind of one of the problems because it's too long, and he needs to splice it down for all of his best stuff. Because like his best stuff is like in the 5-6 minute range. So I'm like, that needs to move up. That's a fantastic play. That should be your first play. So there's some average plays in his highlight reel where I'm like, okay, all right. And then I'm like, oh, that's a great play. Well, why is that not all the way up? So so I think it's interesting. So I'll leave you with this last thought. I was a little wondering why you didn't circle back and try and flip Taj Overton instead. Jenks kid, in-state. Sorry, he's at Owasso. I was thinking of Marquise Overton back in 2018s. Taj is at Owasso, I believe. Why didn't flip Taj Overton instead? Because they obviously, OU actively went out and flipped this kid from FSU. There's no signs FSU was like, go away, we don't want you any longer. That's not the way this worked. So OU aggressively went out and flipped this prospect. We know FSU's paying NIL money. So the fact that OU was able to flip Carrington from FSU, but didn't circle back to Overton, kind of tells me, Chris, that OSU way overspent on Overton for their in-state recruiting win. That if OU didn't circle back to Overton, instead they went to Carrington, tells me all I need to know. The one thing, that I've seen from interviews is that I'm very encouraged about is Nagy's been all over this recruiting in terms of contacting Carrington and his parents. So if Nagy's all on board, then I'm willing to defer my concerns on this until we see some senior film, see how he does in the All-Star game, and see where he goes. But I will say, and this is what my Patreon readers have already gotten this. I love OU looking to add high school defensive tackle bodies after only signing one last year, right? I don't think kicking the can on high school defensive recruiting is a good strategy. Get 3 guys this year at least. Don't sign one defensive tackle 2 years in a row. That will come back and bite you in the ass. So, and I think relying on the portal to make up for low numbers in defensive tackle high school recruiting is also a bad strategy because I don't think you ever quite know what you get in the portal. Grab a guy, but you look at what Texas did this year. They grabbed portal guys in January. Those guys sucked at spring, and then they had to go back and grab 3 more guys post spring. So that's no answer. So I like grabbing Carrington as a 3 tech. Trust Todd Bates. There's enough tools that Todd Bates can make this guy into an SEC defensive lineman like G Baby if he works hard and everything clicks. I love T-Ron Richardson. He's announcing in 9 days. If that goes OU's way, you've got 3 defensive tackles in the class. I like a 3 defensive tackle group. Both Harris and Richardson will be 6'4", 310, 315 type guys. And if you have 2 of those guys, I'm fine with a 3 technique guy who's 6'2", 290, and he's got burst and twitch.
So Sooner Cowboys is still sad about Deuce Gerald's. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the question is OU is 4 of the top 100 defensive tackles in the country should be in Norman this fall. George Toa, Jalen Brewster, Elijah Harmon, and probably a couple of guys from the Southeast area. They're pushing to get on campus heavily. I don't have a name yet. So looks to me like Nagy's ready to spend money next year on a top 100 guy, or at least maybe 2 of them. So we'll see what happens, and we'll see how things play out. But Deuce Gerald's let's just see what happens. There's a chance that things can things can go in a different direction. If OU's winning football games, I think everybody is on flip watch if they were heavily looking at OU. OU's got official visits they can use, and they've got great home games to bring kids in for. So if OU's winning, October and November recruiting could be pretty wild.
Well, with that being said, do you have any other recruiting notes before we get up out of here?
They just offered. They made a couple of recent offers, and there's just one I want to point out. Let me get his name. Recruiting update part 2. Here we go. I don't want to miss his name. They just offered a kid from Florida, a linebacker. I've never heard of him before. He's unranked. His name is Noah Rennes or Renz. I'm not sure how he pronounces it. He's 6'3", 230. And Chris with a K, he is breaking kids in half. And his run stopping, I literally saw him, I think, kill 3 running backs in his sophomore film. He looks fantastic. Does a good job dropping off in coverage. He's unranked, but I think OU's found a gem in Florida that I don't quite understand how he's unranked. The kids fit. I mean, he was hurt. Maybe that's why. But the kids, he just posted his week 0 film, his game he played Saturday night, and he's breaking people apart, flinging quarterbacks around. And the one last thing. I don't know. I always say one last note, and I have one more note. OU offered tight end Ahmed Hudson from Louisiana. He's 6'8", 230. He's a 5-star in hoops and a 5-star in football. And his film is Jermaine Grisham-like. Now, he's from Louisiana, so we probably have no chance of getting him. But he is insistent he wants to play high school hoops. And if you folks aren't paying attention, and I would understand why, but Porter Moser is recruiting high school hoops at a level OU's not seen in, I don't know, 20 years. There are 3 5-star basketball players officially visiting Norman this fall. And OU has a chance with all 3 of them. Topher B saying, yeah, I agree. So he's a small forward, power forward type. Maybe Moser and Brent and Nagy can convince him that come to OU, we'll let you play both. We've got a good hoops team. We're up. The hoops team apparently, could be very good this year. We'll see. I don't know. It's not really my forte. But OU shouldn't have a shot at Ahmed Hudson. But Moser's on a hot recruiting streak with the high school players. The fears stuff really landed, and kids want to at least visit Norman. So we'll see. Maybe OU could be more of a factor there. I would say they have 0 chance. But if Moser can get him involved and say, come visit for basketball, maybe OU has a better chance than we think. And there's money on the B-Bowl side. Moser got a bunch of cash for the portal guys that OU signed in April. And the high school guys coming, if Porter gets the cash he needs, he could sign 2 5-star players, including a 7-footer that Kansas wants.
All right. Well, we may get into some basketball this year. I'm hesitant because I think
I have a great basketball source, so we'll see.
Moser is a really good coach, and I will say that. But I have been very critical of the team. But we will see. We will see. But hey, look, people, we've been here for about an hour now. We said we're going to be here for just for a little bit. So go back, run it up. Those numbers, those likes on both channels, Sooners 360 and the Horns Down podcast. Obviously, our third compositor, he was not here, Jason, but go check out, the Hall of Fame College Football podcast with Jason and the coach and every other thing. Jason is probably still asleep. He was up till like 1 o'clock last night, taking calls and knocking
bashing Michigan in the NCAA left and right, apparently.
Exactly. So with that being said, people, we are out of here. We'll talk to you soon.